second full year under new ownership to really be where they are right now for this Commanders franchise is one of the best stories of this NFL season.
Went to the playoffs and won 2 road games. Now we're going to use that. Hey, rookie quarterback one? No more rookie quarterback. He's already arrived in the NFL as a legitimate quarterback. And can you say, Ben, is he already top 5?
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
He did nothing for 5 weeks. So he's becoming his brother. So I don't want to hear about how great T.J. Watt is with his 0 playoff wins. And he's the first guy to admit it. He comes right out and says, I've never won a playoff game. I don't matter. All right, at least we all know who the best player on the team is. It's George Pickens. If you don't believe that, well, then screw you, too.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
Real momentum on Deion Sanders becoming the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
I heard that this morning.
And Dallas is interested in the idea. Deion is interested in the idea, and there is equal interest in moving up to get Shedeur Sanders to be the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys under Deion.
Be a hell of a reality show.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
We all know MVPs don't win the Super Bowl. It's not about MVPs, man. The only MVP, fine. Win the MVP of the Super Bowl. Nobody cares about the MVP of the regular season besides people that bet on it, the actual player themselves, and their agent that's getting a cut of the bonus money. Other than that, who cares? What do you care who wins the MVP? Like I said, unless you bet on it. Right? If you bet on it, fine. Then I guess you care.
Sports Rage tonight. Only on SportsGrid.
Hello and welcome to a Thursday Live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination and consume everything all across the grid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We are here together for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Now just 3 days away from Conference Championship Sunday in the National Football League. But as we get ready for a conference championship weekend to determine our Super Bowl matchup in New Orleans, so much is happening right now around the NFL. The coaching carousel, the front office carousel. Boy, was it spinning yesterday in the NFL. Everything you need to know from a jam-packed Wednesday in the sport around the league here on a Thursday. We'll recap an 8-game slate around the association. Not even sure Donnie knows this. The NBA's playing an international game today in Paris and DRS. I didn't know that until yesterday. College basketball action and so much more over these 3 hours on a Thursday on the Early Line.
Some might be looking at team total to the under today in a Big Ten matchup. Could be. How about at Moraga tonight with St. Mary's? A late-night clash with the Dons of the University of San Francisco. Look, we're just starting to dip our toes in the water of college basketball, which, by the way, all these preseason college basketball games, you're going to love it next Monday when the college basketball season officially begins right here on the Early Line. Just wanted to give that tease, but yes, we are waiting for Sunday afternoon. 2 awesome games that are going to line up that we have to get through all the details, but also more importantly, Ben, as you pointed out, the coaching carousel moving. Horrendous organizations who made horrendous decisions in the past, hoping the season start anew with fresh talent like good head coaches and good general managers.
But a similar scenario for the New York Jets, who have officially named Aaron Glenn, former Detroit defensive coordinator, the new head coach of Gang Green. It became official yesterday. Aaron Glenn, now the new head coach of the New York Jets. DRS, since the year 2000, Aaron Glenn will be the 7th new head coach for the New York Jets. 6 of them a first-time head coach from a defensive background, but Aaron Glenn very familiar with this Jets organization in the greater tri-state area. He was a first-round pick of the Jets back in 1994 and spent the first 8 years of his NFL career in that defensive secondary for New York. The Jets have hired Aaron Glenn as their next head coach.
You know what I can't wait to see? He's going to be welcomed into New York. He's going to be introduced at a press conference. And I want that first question to be not, how did you get here? What makes you so great? Are you keeping Aaron Rodgers or not? Because that's going to tell me a lot about this decision. One way or another, if he's decisive, absolutely I'm keeping Aaron Rodgers. Okay, man has a game plan. Absolutely, we're not keeping Aaron Rodgers, and we're open quarterback competition for 2025. I'll like that as well. Don't give me a press conference where he just says, we'll see what the future holds. That's ridiculous. Give me the answer right away. Let me know you are a leader of men with a game plan right off the bat. We'll see how it plays out.
We will see what happens. Of course, a general manager still needs to be officially hired in New York as well. Speaking of GMs, the Jacksonville Jaguars fired Trent Baalke yesterday after 4 years together. But DRS, this was not the Monday following the end of the regular season when Doug Peterson, the Jags head coach of the previous 3 years, was let go. This was nearly 2.5 weeks after that. On the same day, we heard that Liam Cohen rebuked the Jags' offer to become the next head coach in Duval County because so many around the National Football League expressed skepticism having to work with Trent Baalke. It took the Jaguars far too long, but they do fire Baalke yesterday.
That means the owner doesn't have the pulse of his own organization or his league. Maybe I own too many soccer teams. Maybe my son owns too many wrestling leagues in here. Oh, wait, I own the Jaguars as well. What's going on over there? You should have your ear to the ground. It doesn't mean you need to meddle, but if there are operations where you need a new head coach that's going to lead your organization and you're getting whispers in your ear, nobody's coming here until you fire your general manager and you go like, I like my general manager, but down the line, if other people don't like him, I'll fire him. And it turns out that was a few weeks too late. You might have missed out an opportunity to get the best coach. Now you're going to be settling for a coach at this point. Horrible way to run your organization.
Do you reopen the search? What exactly is your timetable? A disaster in Duval County. The Las Vegas Raiders have hired a new general manager as well. After only 1 year with Tom Telesco guiding the ship, new ownership, of course, in Sin City, and a familiar name, John Spytek. Now the new GM in Las Vegas was the assistant general manager the last few years of the Buccaneers, was there when Tom Brady guided Tampa to a Super Bowl victory, and it doesn't stop there. He was the teammate of Tom Brady back in the late 1990s at the University of Michigan.
There you go, an in-house guy that Tom Brady is comfortable with, which lets you know the operation for the Raiders is Tom Brady and nobody else. I need to put my guys in place that will listen to me when I want to chime in, and that's how the organization is going to operate. Now, granted, you might look at this and say, well, Tom was awesome on the field. So was a certain Michael Jordan, one of the worst general managers / owners in the history of professional sports. Let's hope Tom does a little bit better than his counterpart, Michael Jordan.
A very long time with the Buccaneers since
Almost.
2016. An interesting time to make that decision. Anyway, DRS, we're getting you set for conference championship weekend around the NFL. Wednesday, always a big day, each and every week around the National Football League. If you are playing on Sunday, first full day of practice at this stage of the year, with only two potential games remaining, they take it easy on a Wednesday. But Jalen Hurts, of course, with the knee injury, estimated as a limited participant in the light walkthrough for Philadelphia yesterday.
Yeah, he's a tough guy. He's going to play on Sunday. The question is always, how effective is he actually going to be? If he's somewhat effective, that should be good enough. If he's healthy, then the Eagles should be able to roll. But we won't know until Sunday, until that first quarterback RPO is called, and he keeps that football, and the crowd and the defense for the Washington Commanders will know how effective he's going to be on the ground right away.
Yes, we will certainly know, and we'll keep an eye on all of the numbers with Jalen Hurts and, of course, the spread. The Heat suspend Jimmy Butler again. A very similar story, a 2-game suspension now for Jimmy Butler. Of course, disgruntled and hoping to be dealt by Miami. He missed a team flight yesterday, now suspended for a 2-game road trip.
Let's get something straight. If I go back and look at Jimmy Butler's career, he's unhappy every single place he is. So the Suns now getting a preview of what's going to happen to them in about a year or two and a year and a half. Congratulations. I sent the tweet out yesterday. You're moving 3 first-round picks for Jimmy Butler. Why aren't you offering a second-round pick saying, take it or leave it? Because he just blew your team up anyway. Why am I paying anything to take your problem off your hand and give you a maximum return? What is it? Like the art of the deal that we like to call it. What a horrible deal the Suns are about to make.
Yeah, it would seem like that. Not really sure what the positive benefit is of Jimmy Butler at this stage in his career. Big battle yesterday in the NBA. Houston Rockets, second best team in the Western Conference. The Cleveland Cavaliers, best overall record in the NBA. And it came down to a single point. Houston holds on, 109-108. Darius Garland had 2 free throws, or 3 in total, missed 2 at the very end of regulation, DRS. Houston wins.
Make your free throws, kids, but that's a pretty good upstart here, Rockets team. Something fun to watch out down the rest of the stretch.
Yep.
OKC and Houston, the 2 best in the West. Who would have thought that a couple years ago, Ben?
A thriller in Houston, a thriller in Oxford. Texas A&M in a top 20 tilt beats Ole Miss on the road. Plenty more on the early line up next.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The New York Jets have a new head football coach. His name is Aaron Glenn, a familiar face and name in the organization, a first-round pick by New York way back in 1994, spent 8 seasons in the defensive backfield for Gang Green, and after 4 years as Detroit's defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, now the new head coach in New York. DRS, we talked about this yesterday. Aaron Glenn interviewing with the Jets in Florham Park on Tuesday afternoon in person, and the hope was for the Jets they would not allow Aaron Glenn to leave without an offer and a signed deal to become that next head coach. But he did depart back to the Motor City, mulled it over for about 24 hours, and yesterday it became official. Aaron Glenn, now the new head coach of the New York Jets.
Been there, done that, right? Aaron Glenn knows the Big Apple. Drafted there as a first-round draft pick, played good football for the Jets, so he knows the organization per se and the fan base, which is a great start, which helps you to get in that honeymoon stage like, hey, he's one of our own. But let's understand this. You know, you talk about the X's and O's, which we'll find out what type of coach he is, but you wanted really to pick the brains of the Detroit Lions organization and say, this is how we're going to restart our team in that mold, where the city, the town, the fans are going to buy into this. We're going to play hard-nosed football. We're going to be aggressive, and these players are going to give it their all in the field, because that's something we haven't seen from the Jets, particularly this past season. You fired Robert Saleh to get a look at Albrecht as a defensive coordinator, and it seemed like all of the talent on the football team was just soft at that point. Nobody wanted to fight for anything. There was different factions, the Aaron Rodgers faction, the offense, the defense, players holding out, players not giving it their all. We've seen that here. I think that ends on day one, which is fantastic because that's half of the battle. You must start that foundation and building it up. Now, the only issue is this is a veteran team. Can you teach those old dogs new tricks? That's always the question marks that are going to pop up. Is this a complete rebuild saying, I have a vision for this football team, and the vision right now is unclear because the players I have, I'm not really going to use the future because it's not really a young team. It's a veteran-laden team, which starts with the quarterback on the offensive side. How about some of those aging linebackers or Hassan Reddick getting a little bit older, holding out, getting a lot of money, and not performing at all? So I do think the culture is going to change, and that's a good thing. But for me, when I pick head coaches, I always start on the offensive side because that's the key ingredient. You can always find a solid defensive coordinator to coach your defense, i.e. the Philadelphia Eagles getting Vic Fangio, fixing the worst defense in the NFL and turning them into the best defense in the NFL. But the problem is always on the offensive side. I'm going to give the Jets the benefit of the doubt because I don't look at this hire and say this was a bad one. Could this work out? Yes. Do you need a new foundation? Do you need a coach that's going to be able to stand up in front of your players and get the best out of them? I think you will, and we'll see how it plays out.
And there's been a lot of conversation about that. Even Aaron Glenn, as the Lions were getting ready for an NFC division round matchup against the Commanders, was asked about his defensive background and where the NFL is going right now, and the idea of successful head coaches, often coming from the offensive side of the football, being those creative whizzes that have success as a head coach because you can fill out your staff to address the other needs. Aaron Glenn barked back at that and said, listen, I'm a football coach. I happen to work on the defensive side of the ball, but I spend a lot of time studying offensive systems and in those offensive meetings around our organization. Donnie, for a team in the New York Jets, where Aaron Glenn is now the 7th new head coach that was hired since the end of the 2000 NFL season, it seems to be a similar philosophy. 6 of those 7, including Glenn, first-time head coaches with a defensive background, coming from a defensive coordinator role or something as a defensive assistant coach around the National Football League. The lone exception to that is Adam Gase, who was also a disaster for the New York Jets. It's just an interesting thought for the Jets on how they want to approach things moving forward. I think Aaron Glenn, by all reports, by all indications, hearing from those around him on either side of the football in Detroit, they think this guy is a genius. They think this guy will get the most out of his players each and every moment. I hope he has success. But he enters a scenario with the New York Jets, an organization that has not made the NFL postseason in 14 consecutive years. By far the longest drought in the National Football League, but also the longest postseason drought in any of the 4 major men's professional sports leagues in North America, including the NBA, NHL, and MLB. And Donnie, in the 14 years missing out on the playoffs, half of them, including this past season, the Jets won 5 games or fewer. It is a large task for Aaron Glenn to come in and turn things around right away.
It is, but also when you're a coach, these are some of the circumstances that you like. If you're handed a great football team and underwhelmed, well, you're a really bad football coach. You're going to get the benefit of the doubt in New York as long as you proceed two different ways that I said. If you're going to stand up in front of that microphone and say, I have a clear-cut plan, and Aaron Rodgers is not back, or Aaron Rodgers is back from day one, I've already told him my exact scenario. Here's how we're going to proceed. I say, you know what? I like that. Or is it up to Woody Johnson and his 17, 18-year-old son, Brick Johnson, on whether Aaron Rodgers is coming back? And then we take a look at Aaron Glenn, who's just a head coach in name and doesn't have a lot of say in the organization. But this is what we talked about, Ben, where the fact is he flew in. They're like, we can't let him out there. We're going to offer him the contract, and he left there. He was hearing things that he didn't like, okay, head coach reports directly to the general manager, then the vice president, then to me as the owner. Hold on now. I want those communication lines direct, because if I need a quarterback, if I need a linebacker, I want to make a draft pick, I get the last say here. Also, what's the compensation? And we talked about it yesterday. Right. He got his full 5 years and probably got a hefty pay raise than probably what a first-time head coach is going to get. So I think things worked out in his favor. They wanted him, and he wanted that job, but I think he did the right thing with him and his agent, stretching that out an extra half day to make sure he got exactly what he wanted out of that team.
Absolutely so, DRS. The last time the New York Jets even had a winning record in an NFL regular season was 2015. Did not make the playoffs that year despite double-digit wins. Aaron Glenn, now the fifth head coach around the NFL that played for the organization he now leads. And for the Detroit Lions, they have to fill out their coordinators, with Ben Johnson, of course, departing for Chicago. We'll hear from Ben, the new leader of the Bears, in just a little bit, and Aaron Glenn, the new head coach of the New York Jets. So still 4 head coaching vacancies around the NFL, including in Jacksonville. What are the Jaguars going to do, DRS? They need a new head coach and a new general manager. Trent Baalke is out. We'll break down why next. Second full year under new ownership to really be where they are right now for this Commanders franchise is one of the best stories of this NFL season.
Went to the playoffs and won 2 road games. Now we're going to use that. Hey, rookie quarterback on? No more rookie quarterback. He's already arrived in the NFL as a legitimate quarterback. And can you say, Ben, is he already top 5?
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
He did nothing for 5 weeks. So he is becoming his brother. So I don't want to hear about how great TJ Watt is with his 0 playoff wins. And he's the first guy to admit it. He comes right out and says, I've never won a playoff game. I don't matter. All right, at least we all know who the best player on the team is. It's George Pickens. If you don't believe that, well, then screw you too.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
Real momentum on Deion Sanders becoming the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
I heard that this morning.
And Dallas is interested in the idea. Deion is interested in the idea, and there is equal interest in moving up to get Shedeur Sanders to be the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys under Deion.
Be a hell of a reality show.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
We all know MVPs don't win the Super Bowl. It's not about MVPs, man. The only MVP, fine. Win the MVP of the Super Bowl. Nobody cares about the MVP of the regular season besides people that bet on it, the actual player themselves, and their agent that's getting a cut of the bonus money. Other than that, who cares? What do you care who wins the MVP? Like I said, unless you bet on it. Right? If you bet on it, fine. Then I guess you care.
Sports Rage tonight. Only on SportsGrid.
An absolute stunning move in Jacksonville that perhaps was made 2 weeks too late. Trent Baalke, the GM in Jacksonville for the previous 4 seasons, is now out as the general manager of this Jaguars franchise, fired yesterday. It was Monday, January 6th, the day after the end of the 2024 NFL regular season, that Doug Peterson was let go by Jacksonville. But Trent Baalke was retained by ownership, led, of course, by Shad Khan. And it was rather surprising, DRS, because all around the National Football League, people were like, okay, I can understand firing Doug Peterson, but why in the world would you keep the embattled GM, Trent Baalke, to lead a new coaching search? And then we got reports that Shad Khan said the new head coach that will be hired will report in to me. And over 16 days later, Jacksonville then fires Trent Baalke. DRS, try to make some sense of it if you wouldn't mind.
There's no sense to it. And also, if you remember, I believe it was an interview where those two, talking about the owner and the general manager, sat side by side and was asked the question, like, what happens if, like, the new coach doesn't like the GM? He's like, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I probably would get rid of the GM at that point. Now it's like, what are we actually doing in Jacksonville? What type of effort? Because at least you want a solid front that you're presenting here to the workforce, which means, like, no, this is my general manager. He's in charge. He's going to make that decision. End of story. So at least you know what you're getting into. But then you hear the owner going like, well, if they don't like him, yeah, sure, we can always get rid of him. It's not a big deal, which then says, why did you keep him anyway? And it's from the initial point when we opened the show. It's simple. You're an NFL owner. You have dozens, let's just say, of people that work under you that are your eyes and ears for the organization and around the NFL. Hey, Mr. Khan, just want to let you know, I have a couple coaches here that I'm back channeling. They're saying it's going to be an issue with this general manager, whether or not they want to take your job. The minute you hear that, that's an issue, because most coaches would say, love that GM. Can't wait to get in the building. Let me sell you on my ideas. We would be a match made in heaven. And the minute that you're hearing the coaches that you know are going to be head coaches this cycle telling you, it's nice that you're open. That might be an option, but we don't like your general manager. We're looking elsewhere right now. There should have been a change made immediately. So now it's great that you got rid of the general manager who around the NFL circles wasn't very liked. But you got rid of him 2.5 weeks too late, where you might have had a chance at Ben Johnson. You might have been able to say, hey, look, come down here. It's a great place to live. Low taxes. You're going to pick your general manager. You'll report directly to me. You have Trevor Lawrence. We'll give you whatever you want to try to succeed, and also in a division that you can win. It's not like saying you're going to go to Vegas and look at the tough trials you're going to have, the Chicago Bears. There were some appealing things that you could have had in Jacksonville, but you just burned those bridges for an entire season where now you have to pick up the scraps and hope somebody likes you. And what is that? Setting your organization back another 2 to 3 years because that's the coaches you actually didn't want, but hopefully somebody just took the job. Terrible.
It is insane. And Donnie, to end out our show yesterday, we were discussing Liam Cohen, who seemed to be the front runner in Jacksonville, even by reports yesterday from the inner workings of the Jags organization. Tampa's offensive coordinator becoming the new head coach. But then he removed himself from the running. And of course, the natural thought was, well, nobody wants to work even around Trent Baalke, which then leads to his dismissal just a few hours later. So what does Jacksonville do now? Do they hire a GM and start the coaching search again? We got reports that Robert Saleh, former Jets head coach, is flying into Duval County today for an in-person meeting on Friday. Was that before Trent Baalke was fired or after Trent Baalke was fired? What exactly is going to happen with the Jags? And Donnie, you mentioned it. You have Trevor Lawrence. You have your franchise guy. We can debate whether we think Trevor Lawrence is a top 10, top 5, top 15 quarterback around the NFL. But it should be an attractive destination, and it is not. It is incredibly, incredibly chaotic. Look at the resume that Trent Baalke put together in a 4-year run. That total, 25-43. Urban Meyer was there back in the 2021 season. That should have been grounds for dismissal right away. The Jacksonville Jaguars should be an enticing location of the NFL head coaching vacancies. It is quite the opposite.
Yeah, a division you can win, A franchise quarterback that is signed, that does have a lot of talent and was a franchise guy when you drafted him. A wide receiver that you hit a grand slam home run on him out of LSU and Brian Thomas Jr. You got a solid situation in your backfield, good pass rushers on the defensive line. This should be a spot where teams and certainly coaches would love to get there and say, you know what? This team could be a problem over the next couple years. Maybe there's a problem just with the owner at this point, Ben.
It's a problem for Jacksonville. More on the early line next.
Saturday, January 25th is a huge day at Gulfstream Park. It is Pegasus Cup Day. We're going to have a preview show. First Bet presents the DRF handicapping show for Pegasus World Cup. Alexa, tell us more.
Yep, Friday, January 24th. Make sure to tune in on SportsGrid TV from 2 to 3 p.m. to see the show. If you miss it then, don't worry. It airs again on Saturday at 11 a.m. We're going to talk about all the major contenders in the Pegasus Cup.
Special guests Bailey Armour, Samantha Perry, and Randy Moss will join us. Don't miss it.
He did nothing for 5 weeks. So he is becoming his brother. So I don't want to hear about how great TJ Watt is with his 0 playoff wins. And he's the first guy to admit it. He comes right out and says, I've never won a playoff game. I don't matter. All right, at least we all know who the best player on the team is. It's George Pickens. If you don't believe that, well, then screw you too.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
Real momentum on Deion Sanders becoming the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
I heard that this morning.
And Dallas is interested in the idea. Deion is interested in the idea, and there is equal interest in moving up to get Shedeur Sanders to be the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys under Deion.
Be a hell of a reality show.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
We all know MVPs don't win the Super Bowl. It's not about MVPs, man. The only MVP, fine. Win the MVP of the Super Bowl. Nobody cares about the MVP of the regular season besides people that bet on it, the actual player themselves, and their agent that's getting a cut of the bonus money. Other than that, who cares? What do you care who wins the MVP? Like I said, unless you bet on it. Right? If you bet on it, fine. Then I guess you care.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The Wednesday of Conference Championship weekend around the NFL really should be fixated on who is practicing, but it was quite the opposite yesterday. It was a busy day around the NFL. Aaron Glenn hired as the new head coach of the New York Jets. Trent Baalke fired as the general manager in Jacksonville. And a new GM named in Las Vegas. The Raiders tabbing John Spytek as the new general manager to lead the front office. The previous 2 seasons, the assistant GM in Tampa Bay. He had worked, Spytek, with the Buccaneers since 2016, which means he was a part of the organization, of course, when Tom Brady led the Buccaneers to a Super Bowl championship in the 2020 NFL season. Tom Brady, now a minority owner in Las Vegas, but really, it would seem, is starting to call some shots. One step further in the relationship between John Spytek and Tom Brady, they overlap for a season in Ann Arbor. Tom Brady's final year in Michigan as a senior, Spytek's first. He was a linebacker. Didn't see all that much playing time for the Maize and Blue, but still many commonalities between the general manager now in Las Vegas in Spytek and his buddy and now new boss, Tom Brady.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. We'll see the moves they make because they do need some talent, which in turn means a quarterback of the future is probably the most pressing need that the Vegas Raiders need. But I can't fault this because you want guys on the same page. Like if you think Tom Brady, one of the best, maybe the best ever to play football, understands how to put a winning organization together. He was in New England, learned under Bill Belichick, and you saw how that went, multiple Super Bowls. But then also had the ability to say, I'm going to leave that as an aging veteran and go to a completely new organization, and I'm going to lift them to a Super Bowl myself. So he is going to get the benefit of the doubt from me. And I'm not saying this was a bad hire. You just like the common knowledge of this guy understands what I'm looking for. We can work together. The communication lines are open. I know the guy from the past here. And also, coming from a pretty good organization, the Bucs, he didn't pluck this guy from a bad organization with a lot of turmoil. Right. I like what the Bucs have been doing, and Brady won a Super Bowl there, and they're competitive by winning divisions after divisions after divisions. So that is a positive. I just want to see what the game plan is going to be moving forward. Is this guy in charge where he runs things off of Tom Brady, or is Tom Brady in charge saying, what I say goes, and this guy will be my mouthpiece perfectly while I operate behind the scenes? That's still to be determined, but we still have to give Tom Brady the benefit of the doubt at this point that he hired a good general manager that's ready to go in the NFL.
A lot of familiarity there, of course, as well. Seems to be a good move in Las Vegas for Spytek, getting that first shot at really calling all the shots. Worked under Jason Light, who has been a long-time general manager with the Buccaneers, now going on 11 seasons, about to embark on year number 12 in Tampa. That's pretty solid consistency within a front office, and as we shared in various different roles the previous 2 seasons as the assistant GM with the Buccaneers, John Spytek was there since 2016. A stable foundation in Tampa, hoping to create the same, of course, in Las Vegas. The Raiders are a compelling organization at this moment. We talked about what Aaron Glenn will have the arduous task of trying to do in New York, to lead the Jets back to a postseason for the first time in 14 years. More than likely will not happen in his debut year as the head coach in 2025. That could be a decade and a half, 15 years consecutively of missing out on the playoffs. Now, the Raiders made the playoffs just a few years ago, but the RS since 2002, the Raiders have made the playoffs twice. Both of those years, they reached the postseason in Las Vegas and or Oakland, were the only 2 seasons the Raiders in the last 22 around the National Football League have had a winning record. And of course, the Raiders, still plenty of questions to address this offseason. First and foremost, who's going to be the head coach now that the GM is in place? And then number 2, we're not even drafting in the top 5 anymore. We have pick number 6. What are we doing at the quarterback position?
Yeah, that's the question, and you're going to have to figure that out. Is this one of those years where you hire a head coach and let you say to yourself, we're going to play this through, and maybe we'll just get one of those reads on the organization, how's it's doing and what we can go for? That could be one thing. But let's also understand one thing about the Vegas Raiders, because you're only as good as your ownership groups put you in that position to win. The reason I say that is, let's remind ourselves, Al Davis was a legend in the AFL and the NFL back in the early 1980s, 1970s, the John Madden era. They were winning Super Bowls, commitment to excellence, just win, baby. We glamorize that. And by the way, fantastic color combinations. But understand the businessman that Al Davis was. He actually fought. Think about this in this day and age. To get out of Los Angeles when he was going to be the only professional football team in LA. Can you imagine what the Raiders would be worth today if they never decided to go back to Oakland after St. Louis acquired the Rams? Unbelievably horrible business decision. Then he goes back and ruins the ballpark up there in Alameda County Coliseum by putting in Mount Davis and holds the city hostage, then sells his team out to go to Las Vegas, which is horrendous in itself, but also tutoring his son all along who has no business owning a team at this point, and they run horribly. Is it a surprise? Absolutely not. Maybe Tom Brady can finally get something in that organization that says, understand this. I'm here for the long term. I'm still young. I'm going to run this team, and within 5 years, we're going to be a respectable organization, because it all starts at the top. Horrible business decisions made left and right by the Davis family. Maybe we finally got it right with allowing Tom Brady into our owner's circle here, and maybe he can guide us in the right direction. But you're right about the quarterback position. You don't win anything without a quarterback. And having said that, if you don't have your quarterback next year, good luck in that division, because it's going to get ugly quick.
Yep, absolutely so. Slandering Al Davis here on the show today, but Donnie is correct. Bad ownership. Bad ownership is the reason fans can blame players, they can blame a coaching staff, they can look specifically at a head coach or a front office. If bad organizations continue to be bad over a long span of time, a couple of blips on the radar of success, and then everything else is failure, you can look in one spot only. That is ownership, which leads us perhaps to our next team to discuss. That would be the Chicago Bears. As Donnie highlighted yesterday, as Ben Johnson walked into Hallis Hall for the first time as the Bears' new head coach, he should have looked around at everybody. Maybe not the poor staffers grinding it out on their 9 to 5, trying to make the Bears the best franchise they can be, but maybe the McCaskey family and say, get out of here, I'm the new sheriff in town. What we heard from Ben Johnson yesterday in his introductory press conference officially, and of course DRS, the main topic of conversation, quarterback Caleb Williams entering year 2 in the NFL.
Modern football in the NFL is quarterback driven. That is no secret. You can look at analytics. Right now, quarterback success is a higher predictor of winning and losing than turnover ratio, which it's been for 20 plus years. Okay, that's changed. So there's no doubt Caleb played a large component into my decision. He is a phenomenal talent that had, as many quarterbacks do, an up and down rookie year. Where I see my role is as a supporter of him. This offense will be calibrated with him in mind. We're going to build this thing. This is not simply a dropping of a previous playbook down on the table and starting there. Nope. We're ripping this thing down to the studs, and we're going to build it up with him first and foremost, and then with the pieces around him next.
And we'll hear from Caleb Williams after the break, but DRS, a lot of reports yesterday out of Hallis Hall that if you can win an introductory press conference, Ben Johnson did exactly that in Chicago.
Yeah, Corpse could have won that introductory press conference with how bad that organization is. Hey, we got a casket up there with a dead body. Man, what a great hire by the Bears because of what we saw of their previous hires and what they've been doing at this point. So for my money here, I loved what he actually said at that press conference because this shows the guy absolutely gets it. He's not saying like, well, I'm bringing that Detroit mentality. I'm bringing that Detroit playbook, and here we go away. No, you have a completely different quarterback, but he goes, I'm talented enough that I will build a dominant offense that specifies exactly what my quarterback likes to do. I love to hear that home run hire by the Chicago Bears.
And let's hear from Caleb Williams after the break, live right here on the Early Line.
It's Championship Sunday. Can rookie sensation Jaden Daniels clip the Eagles' wings on his way to Super Bowl history? Then, two teams that know each other all too well face off in the AFC in the Bills and Chiefs. SportsGrid has you covered all day Sunday. Start at 8 a.m. with FST, followed by Pro Football Today, and stay with us for in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Saturday, January 25th is a huge day at Gulfstream Park. It is Pegasus Cup Day. We're going to have a preview show. First Bet presents the DRF handicapping show for Pegasus World Cup. Alexa, tell us more.
Yep, Friday, January 24th. Make sure to tune in on SportsGrid TV from 2 to 3 p.m. to see the show. If you miss it then, don't worry. It airs again on Saturday at 11 a.m. We're going to talk about all the major contenders in the Pegasus Cup.
Special guests Bailey Armour, Samantha Perry, and Randy Moss will join us. Don't miss it.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than game time decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid, the introductory press conference for new Bears head coach Ben Johnson yesterday. We just heard from him before the break on how he plans to incorporate his offensive scheme surrounding his new quarterback, about to embark on year number 2 in his NFL journey. That, of course, Caleb Williams, the first overall pick in 2024. So enough of myself and Donnie. Let's hear from Caleb himself on his reaction to Chicago hiring Ben Johnson.
Extremely excited. When we called, it was Kevin, George, Ryan, and Ted all on the phone, and I kind of said thank you to all of them, and then once I got off the phone, I was driving on the highway, and I don't know if it was safe or not, but I gave out a loud yell and scream of just excitement, of just it brings a bunch of clarity to the off season. It brings a bunch of different things to the off season, and I'm really excited about obviously the Bears and this org and being able to make this happen and keep Ben Johnson as our coach for a long time.
I mean, Caleb Williams should be absolutely thrilled, DRS. The Bears made the correct decision to get Ben Johnson, which surprised some around the NFL, but you heard from Johnson himself. Caleb was a big decision-making factor in him taking on the Bears' head coaching job. It should be a positive and beneficial partnership moving forward. Do you think it will?
Yes, I do, because talent is what succeeds in the NFL, and harnessed talent makes it even better, where you can take a raw kid and say he has every tool I need. And we're not even calling, Caleb Williams is the last thing that's raw. This guy is this guy is polished, this guy can do everything you need him to do. Now you get a coach that says, I'm going to take what you do extremely well and make you play even better, and that's just unbelievable. I think it's going to work out fantastic, because if you're telling me I can run an offense with Jared Goff, who is a statue in the pocket, has a decent arm here and some talent, and look at what we did there. Now I can get a kid that can actually manipulate the pocket, roll out, use his legs, and make every throw at the same time. Yeah, we're going to make this work. So absolutely. This is why we talked about it last year, why it was so puzzling when Eberflus came back, because now you have a job that every single offensive mind is going to go, I want that job. I can't believe it's not available, but boy, I hope something goes wrong this year, because next year I'll want that job again. Yeah. Exactly the situation there in Detroit with Ben Johnson, eyeing up that position. Even last year, he could have the keys to the fort there for Washington, and you were drafting a quarterback. You had an organizational change, and he probably still in his mind goes, you know what? I'm waiting for the perfect opportunity before I leave. Let me go back to Detroit. The perfect opportunity opened up in Chicago. He took that there. So he's not lying when he goes yeah, they threw me a lot of money and it was just time to leave Detroit. No, he wanted this job because of why? This quarterback he wanted to coach.
Absolutely, DRS. And we talked about bad ownership and what it can mean in plaguing an organization. My best friend in the world, Luke Lamble, huge Chicago Bears fan. Grew up in Chicago. Because of him, I have sympathy for the Bears and try to understand what that fan base goes through. And each and every year, Luke tells me if there is a good thing, the Bears will often spoil it. You hope that is not the case with Caleb Williams. You hope that is not the case now with Ben Johnson. You hope this can be the dawn of a new era in the Windy City. We shall see. But you would think, DRS, just with the pieces in place, that this combination of head coach and quarterback, this would be it. Ben Johnson, perhaps the most innovative play caller in the NFL right now, with great success. His 3 years acting as the offensive play caller in the Motor City, the Detroit Lions were a top 5 scoring offense each and every year. The Chicago Bears have now ranked in the top 5 in the NFL in scoring offense and points per game in over a decade, since 2013. That is step number 1. In Caleb Williams, who was the first overall pick, of course, the generational touted talent entering the NFL in 2024, had what I would say was actually a pretty good year if you actually watched him play football. But at times, it was easy to pile on a disastrous rookie season for the Bears as an organization. You see those passing yards? 3,541? That is the fifth most in a single season in Bears franchise history. A franchise that, despite being one of the most historic around the NFL, has never had a 4,000-yard passer. Caleb Williams should be on track to see improvement in his game and, of course, the overall success for this Chicago organization in the year and hopefully years to come.
Yes, absolutely. And we're hoping to hit the ground running. You saw Ben Johnson talk about this. And I love when coaches set them up where they don't say, like, you know what? This is a long rebuild. I'm going to set my foundation here. He basically is telling you he's ripping it down to the studs, but you better expect that we are going to win right away. That's putting it into the mindset of the offseason that this isn't a honeymoon phase. Let's see how it goes and really sink our teeth into in year number 2. He's telling them, get ready. Offseason here. We're installing an offense. We expect it to be flawless by week number 1. And if it's not, we're going to work towards that for the remaining parts of the 17 to 18-week season that we're going to embark on. So the future is very bright. You got the quarterback. You got the head coach. Now we need to see some of those results, and I think we will.
Donnie, we kind of talked about this yesterday. One of the reasons people looked at Caleb Williams and said, whoa, what's happening this year in Chicago is because this wasn't a first overall pick entering a bad organization with a win total of 5.5. If they could get to 6 wins and show some signs of life, that would be considered a successful year. No, the Bears entered this year with an 8.5 win total. The over had the juice, expected to be the playoff contender that we have seen out of Jaden Daniels with the Commanders. And when you have 1 and 2, number 1 overall pick, number 2 overall selection, in direct comparison to one another, that also doesn't paint a super fond light on Caleb Williams. So I ask you this question. Entering 2025, with Ben Johnson in place, entering year number 2 for Caleb Williams, what do you think the Bears' win total is going to be?
What it's going to be set at, or what we think they're actually going to wind up with?
What it's going to be set at, odds-wise.
I would probably say almost identical to what you saw last year, to be honest, because that is a tough division that we didn't expect it to be maybe even that tough entering into the season because Minnesota was the wild card. Minnesota, regardless of quarterback, is going to be pretty good. But once again, the expectations of Chicago are higher, even what they were last year. I expect it to be identical to what we saw last year. I think that would be a fair price.
And what is so fascinating is now you have a second-year QB, a first-year head coach, expected to have a winning record. More on the early line next. Second full year under new ownership to really be where they are right now for this Commanders franchise is one of the best stories of this NFL season.
Went to the playoffs and won 2 road games. Now we're going to use that. Hey, rookie quarterback on? No more rookie quarterback. He's already arrived in the NFL as a legitimate quarterback. And can you say, Ben, is he already top 5?
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
We all know MVPs don't win the Super Bowl. It's not about MVPs, man. The only MVP, fine. Win the MVP in the Super Bowl. Nobody cares about the MVP in the regular season besides people that bet on it, the actual player themselves, and their agent that's getting a cut of the bonus money. Other than that, who cares? What do you care who wins the MVP? Like I said, unless you bet on it. Right? If you bet on it, fine. Then I guess you care.
Sports Rage tonight. Only on SportsGrid.
Saturday, January 25th is a huge day at Gulfstream Park. It is Pegasus Cup Day. We're going to have a preview show. First Bet presents the DRF handicapping show for Pegasus World Cup. Alexa, tell us more.
Yep, Friday, January 24th. Make sure to tune in on SportsGrid TV from 2 to 3 p.m. to see the show. If you miss it then, don't worry. It airs again on Saturday at 11 a.m. We're going to talk about all the major contenders in the Pegasus Cup.
Special guests Bailey Armour, Samantha Perry, and Randy Moss will join us. Don't miss it.
This guy Ovechkin, how he was injured and missed all that time, and the fact that he's still on pace to pass Gretzky.
I think everybody's rooting for Ovechkin at this point in time. And I think he'll do it as well. So it's a feat that no one ever thought Scotty would be broken. It's going to be broken, and it's probably going to be broken because, he's not going to stop shooting.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We welcome you back to the early line on this Thursday. So much news yesterday around the NFL. We haven't even really previewed Conference Championship Sunday. We'll keep an eye on those practice and injury reports to start off our second of 3 hours. But to end out the opening hour DRS introductory press conference with Ben Johnson, new head coach of the Bears yesterday, intro presser for new GM in Nashville. The Titans, of course, hiring Mike Borgonzi, who spent the last decade and a half in Kansas City in some form or fashion as the new GM. And the Titans, after a 3-win season and the worst cover team the NFL has ever seen, 2-15 against the number, will be selecting first overall. They desperately need a quarterback, but you saw there in that quote what exactly Borgonzi had to say about utilizing that first overall pick. Let's show you that quote once again. Quote, "We won't pass on a generational talent with the first pick in the NFL draft." End quote. The RS draft season is smokescreen season. A lot of statements are said to provide just a little bit of a speckle of information, but then allowing people like us to overanalyze what exactly those combinations of words mean. What do you think new Titans GM Mike Borgonzi meant by that?
Let's first start with what was he going to say? Like, look, I took the job because you have the number 1 pick, and we are going to pass over generational talent. We're going fullback here with number 1 overall. So understand that. But also, the line's moving because he said that. Generational talent means, yes, I just picked my quarterback of the future, which we couldn't pass over because he is a generational talent. Or we picked another quarterback who we think is a generational talent. Or we picked a wide receiver quarterback combination who could be a generational talent. This is what general managers are supposed to do. And also, if you really have your mindset behind the scenes, here's how I took the job. You know what? We need a lot of talent still here. We feel that maybe there's not a quarterback that we like, or we can trade back to 3 and get said quarterback that we like and pick up a first rounder for the future here. This is all a smokescreen. You have to say things like, you know what, behind the scenes, we want to trade this pick. But you must come out and say, we're not trading this pick. Absolutely not. We have our guy that we like. We'll let you know, which means other teams are like, oh, no, he's going to draft our guy. Let's up the ante to get that pick. Never show your cards here. Of course, he's going to say it's a generational talent, and idiots are going to buy like generational talent. That means cornerback, wide receiver. No, it doesn't. It means absolutely nothing. So the market's changing and looking to bet a non-quarterback now because of what the general manager is saying at an opening press conference when you haven't had any workouts, any vetting process, or anything is hilarious. But that's what we do. We speculate and we run with information. What the general manager said here means nothing to who he's actually going to draft or should I say, not draft, come up in the upcoming draft.
Entering Week 17 of the 2024 NFL regular season before the Giants won outright as a touchdown underdog at home against the Indianapolis Colts when it seemed as though they would have pole position for that first overall pick. Shedeur Sanders was an odds-on favorite to be that first overall selection. Then, after the end of the regular season, Titans secure that number 1 pick, Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami, minus money odds-on favorite. Now, Ward still remains the favorite, but at plus 105, and Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner who can do it all, only backed by 50 cents at plus 155, and Shedeur Sanders, now a much longer price at plus 360. Always fun, DRS. Borgonzi did say, by the way, yesterday that he is going to turn over every stone to make sure they address the quarterback position. And let me tell you something, Mike. If you turn to Will Levis with the number 1 overall pick in your pocket, oh boy, it's going to be a disappointing start to your tenure with the Titans. Donnie, yesterday, for the second consecutive day, Brian Schottenheimer interviewing in person at the Star for Dallas's head coaching vacancy. They spent nearly 4 hours together earlier this week. Yesterday, another in-person interview for a guy that's been in the organization with the Cowboys for the last 3 years. What more do you need out of Brian Schottenheimer that you don't know already?
You don't know anything about that because who knows if he's going to get that head coaching job. Maybe Jerry's just bored. Like, man, we had a great lunch yesterday. You want to come back over for lunch here? Let's just call it an interview and we'll spin it off. It'll be a great tax write-off for me as I can have it as a business lunch as opposed to my own lunch at this point. Who knows what the Cowboys are thinking, but boy, oh boy, if they do hire Brian Schottenheimer, just the laughs, the fantasticness, the amazingness of the coaching hires you could have had, and you wound up with Brian Schottenheimer, boy, that's going to be awesome to watch that fan base explode over that.
A very familiar name in Dallas. It's kind of how Jerry Jones likes to do things. Hour 2 next.